Hey everybody, welcome back to Let's Get Dirty Garage, where today we're going to try and tackle the rest of that rear bumper, test the metal finishing skills or lack thereof, mostly lack thereof, but I'm going to try and get that skinned and ready to go back on the car, so lots and lots of work ahead of us, so let's go ahead and let's get dirty. Is this thing on? Yeah. Okay, so now that we got the taillight pockets and so on in there, threw a little bit of primer on them just so that they don't rusticate and all that fun stuff. But gonna get back on this bumper build. So just try to follow kind of our original plan, few modifications and so on. But went ahead and got this piece bent up as the main bar, trying to follow that contour that we were working on before, and didn't really have the tools to get that whole thing bent up. So I found kind of a local shop that had like an 8-foot brake, and they bent that up. I think it cost me like $65-70 or something like that. But what that gets us is a start here. I know it's a little bit long, but that gets us the main shape that we're after. And I think the first step, because it's kind of going to be complex here in the corner. Obviously, got to fit the sides as it wraps around, and this curve up in here. So I'm going to start with the corners, and then once we get kind of the sides built and we'll know how long the center bar's got to be, and we'll do some cutting and chopping and welding on that. But let's go ahead and get started on the corner here and see what we can come up with, and see if we can make something that looks like it's supposed to, I guess. So anyways, that's the plan. We'll get started on that corner and go from there. All right, so did some guestifying on here on what want this corner to look like. So put it in the CAD program here. I'm thinking that that's gonna fit kind of in here. I mean, we've got this body line that we've got to deal with. I know it's a little bit rough here, but that'll clean up when we do body work and so on. But fitting in there something like that. I mean, following this edge here, kind of filling this pocket, and then we'll figure out a transition here in the corner and all that fun stuff as it curves up. But I'm going to go ahead and get a piece of metal cut out kind of in that shape, and then we can kind of figure out how do we attack these body lines and things like that. I mean, this rolls to the back, also curves kind of this way and that way. So got some compound things to play with here, and we'll see what we can come up with. But I think what we're going to have to start with will be this body line here, because this portion that's inside of, this comes down and it bends in and it bends back out. This is flat, essentially. This part is curved and that part's curved. So we're gonna have to start bending, keeping that flat, and then curve the rest of that piece up. So I'm gonna get a chunk of metal cut out, and we'll kind of mock it up in that corner and see what we can come up with for ideas on how to make that happen. So we'll go from there. All right, so got a chunk kind of cut out where I think it's close to the shape and so on. And I think what I'm gonna do here, in order to make sure that these lines continue straight into the bumper, so I'll keep that feature into the bumper and kind of roll that in there. In order to keep that straight, I'm actually going to put some guidelines in there. I know, actually doing something that makes sense. But try and hit the feature lines there, keeping it straight. So as we bend on this portion of it, we know that we're keeping that line from the car to the bumper. So we will put one against the top line and one to the bottom line. And that way when we go to bend this, these bends are in the right direction and straight. As we bend this, that it should match the car there. So we'll go ahead and put this chunk into the Benderizer 6000 here over here on the vise and see if we can't match these angles here. So that'll be the next step. We'll get that in there, and then we'll start working on shape as we figure out what to do next. So we'll go from that point. Okay, so I got my chunks of angle in there, so I can play with my sheet metal brake here, and basically I got to bend it along those tape lines so we can keep that feature line consistent. So I'm just gonna clamp it in there. Make sure we got both sides of that at least tight. And then I did go ahead and kind of tried to measure that angle of how steep and so on that bend is. Came up with about 20 degrees, so I just got a gauge here to check. Got that set to check once we get to that point. So just a quick that's pretty close. So I think that will get us that top line. And go to that bottom one. It's got to come back the other way. Close enough for who it's for. I'm going to make that top one just a little bit sharper. A little bit sharper of a bend, and just want to take that along the edge of a straight surface there and just kind of tap this edge a little bit, just kind of trying to make that crease just a little bit sharper because it's pretty sharp on the car. So doesn't take much, but just want to make sure that that contour is, you know, at least a decent line to look at, so we don't have too much difference between bumper and car. So alright, so that should get us a start on at least that contour, so let's go ahead and try and fit that to the car and see how far off we are and how much we got to fix. So, all right, so kind of matching up those lines and so on. I think we're actually fairly close. Going to have to make this bumper just a little bit proud of this quarter. I mean, this dives in a little bit here where we put those patches and so on in, and I want the bumper to match to the finish of the car. So obviously some body work and thickness, and just a little bit of filler in there to smooth all this stuff out. So we'll have to make that just a little bit proud, but I think that keeps the shape in line there. And now we can start doing some forming on the on this curve going this way and that curve going this way. And really, I think the easiest way to do that is just kind of some thicker metal, but get that shape pretty close. And then we can start working on how do we make these gaps in here. I left this a little bit long up here, and then have to roll this bottom edge under a little bit to make sure that we can kind of match this bottom line coming across the bottom of the body there, so everything looks like it was supposed to be there rather than something that somebody cobbled up in their garage. So anyways, but that's the end result, is cobbling it up in the garage. So I'm going to put a couple of bends, basically going to curve this a little bit this way and curve this portion down here a little bit this way, so it'll match up with the body lines here. Then we'll mark this off and do some cutting and grinding and see if we can do some fitting there. So we'll go from that point. All right, so got that pretty much good contour, and you can see I put a little bit of, just tiny bit of curve along that side and a little bit more on the bottom, and kind of folded this bottom edge in so it kind of follows the body. So getting that kind of where it should look like an extension of the body. So now I'm going to see if I can find a way to kind of slide this main piece by this and get this trimmed to this size. And I also need to start taking this edge. I've got to roll this in just a little bit because the body tapers towards the center here. So gotta put some whoop-de-doo in that thing. So gotta, yeah, okay. So that's what I'm gonna do next. I'm gonna see if I can get this line to match up a little bit. Then I can make some marks and figure out how I want that gapped and so on, and see if we can't get that so it looks like it belongs. So we'll go from that point. All right, so here's the progress. I got this fit kind of along this line and down that line. Like I said, it's a little bit proud, but I want to make sure I got room. It's straighten out this mess that I made in the body work and all that fun stuff. But got the bend in there aligned, and what I ended up doing is basically cut a little notch out of the bottom of this so I could slide this bar by it, the main bar, and then just kept grinding on this edge. Well, it's a little dark, but grinding on that edge until I got it fit into that main bar, and kind of curved this in to match that curve. So I think it matches the body okay, and what this will allow me to do is actually be able to mark the shape that I'm gonna have to cut that main bar to in order for those to meet and greet and be nice to each other and fun things like that. So I think that will get us a start and allow those two to kind of meet like that. And then obviously I want to put like a 1/8 inch gap to the body work, so got to do a little bit of trimming up here and along that front edge. Try and make that gap even all the way around. And then this point I've got to take down to meet that point. So draw a nice crooked line in there. Okay, so I'll work on that. Basically taking just a little bit off of this so I can get those gaps to the body, and then I'll cut this main bar off and see if we can't get those kind of fitting like they're supposed to, and be able to go from there. So that's the next step, is a little bit more trimming on this. I think the shape is good. This is flat, this is kind of curved this way, the bottom's kind of curved that way and tucked in on the bottom, and this kind of curves around the body there. So a little bit of complex curve there, but I think as it will match to the body as it comes back, I think it'll look nice as it's all tucked in there. So got a little bit of grinding and cutting to do, and we'll check back in at that point. Alright, so got these gaps I think kind of where I want them to be, about 1/8 of an inch or so. I mean, we have some more, need to leave a little bit of a gap in there for any body work and paint, and so got that edge kind of, I mean, obviously got a bunch of work to do there, but then got these meeting up in the corner, I think pretty decent. Enough that we can weld and sand and grind and so on, but I think that's kind of the shape that the rear will take. And next I'll have to repeat the same thing on the other side so I can cut it to length. I think this will be the longest point of that crossbar, and now I want to work on trying getting a transition from this flat top, and kind of want to bend this up to meet this line that we put in for the tail lights. So that's the next challenge, and I think, you know, from the side perspective, kind of like the way that looks. It a little bit of a tuck and taper, but it keeps the body line coming straight back. So I think that will look nice, especially if we can metal finish this to the point. I mean, this is the plan right now. We'll see how it comes out, but if we can metal finish this this whole bumper assembly to the point where it's chrome, then we'll have, you know, painted and then chrome, kind of a nice highlight in there. But be nice and tucked in, and should look like it belongs. So I think gap wise we should be good on that corner piece. So now time to form the tricky piece that does the whoop-de-doo in there, and we'll do that one. Well, I tried to think of about 32 different ways to make a template for this corner and didn't like any of them. So I'm just going to start with a guess on what that's got to be, because I know this portion will be flat to meet up with the bar as it comes across, and I got to kind of roll this portion up. So got to do some creative bending here, and I think, you know, this is going to bend pretty sharp, but the inside bend is going to be tighter than the outside bend. So I'm going to figure out a way to make that a little bit smooth. So this being flat, and this make the transition, again this portion being kind of flat as it meets up in there. So got to be able to tuck this down in there. So we'll do some thinking on that and figure out what we can do for benderizing, and see if we can't make that kind of fit in there, do some chopping and grinding and fun stuff like that. See what we come up with anyway. So like I said, we're making this crap up as we go along, so let's have some fun and see what we can come up with. Alright, so I'm going to try and do a little bit of put a little bit of shape into this to start with. Trying to keep along those lines. Like I said, I want to make the inside bend a little bit sharper than the outside bend, I think anyways. See how that See how that will fit up in there. Let me get a start on that shape of making that transition. Yeah, we'll play with that a little bit, see what we can come up with here. It's almost got to end up being like a 90-degree bend going up on the car. I think that gets us a start. I mean, obviously, looks a little wonky at this point, doesn't it? We'll see what, I'll take it to the car and do some fitting and playing with it and beating on it and see what we can come up with. But I think that's kind of the transition that I want to make. You know, up to, obviously that's a little crooked, but we'll see how that plays out and what kind of adjustments we need to make from there. So let's play with it on the car a little bit and see what we can come up with. Okay, so playing with this a little bit, I think the basic concept is there. I'll try and make I've got obviously some bending up to do in this, but this is going to end up being much flatter in there somehow. But I've got to make this angle, and because this is sitting in here like this, and then the car is back there, so got to make that angle a little bit. So I'm going to have to tuck this corner, roll this a little bit harder on this side. Try and smooth that out. So we'll see what we can come up with there and do a little bit of playing. But I think if it gets us kind of a rough idea of what we want to do, we'll slice that off and start doing some more shaping and forming and see how that works out. So back to the Magic Vise and see what we can come up with, and we'll check in at that point. Okay, so a little bit later, came up with this. Did a lot of shaping and pushing and forming and so on, but this kind of makes that transition from being flat and then kind of coming up and meeting this surface here. And I ended up, in order to kind of help make that curve, I ended up making fumble. I ended up making this. Just took a piece of pipe and welded it so I could put it in the vise, and that gave me something nice, round shape in order to kind of smash that too and keep it smooth as I was making that transition. But I think you know, from a aesthetic perspective, it'll match up. You know, kind of meet the line there for the tailgate, and then follow along that bottom. So I think that should meet up well, and should be able to kind of tuck that into that side piece that just dropped all over the ground and probably bent all up. So got to fix that and put that back together. But I think that gives us a good start. So now what I got to do is repeat both of those operations for the other side, so I can kind of figure out how wide this main beam has got to be and be able to chop it into the right shape. So that is next. Okay, so did the rinse and repeat thing on the other side. Got that side formed, and made a transition piece in here, and got the main bar cut to length. So I've got basically both corners kind of roughed in, I guess, at this point. So, you know, gaps into the body and so on should be okay. I mean, obviously got plenty of body work to do and trying to figure all that stuff out, but as it transitions across there, then we'll have that swoop up, and then basically just going to have to figure out something to fill in the corners and so on as we do that part. But next, since we sorry about that, since we've got to match this curved piece into the top of this, I don't want to go all the way here. There's no sense in making it as long as it is, but I'm going to cut this off here, cut the top of this off to match, because essentially this piece is going to replace this surface. So I'm cut it along this seam here, and then cut it even in here. Kind of find a spot where it makes sense to put those two together, and that way we should have kind of those corners roughed in, and maybe at that point we can actually start tacking things together. So I think making progress, and we'll see how that comes out. Okay, so went ahead and tacked this stuff together. I cut out that portion of that top or the crossbar here. Kind of put things in place so that I kind of know how things are meeting, and got it just tacked in there for now. Trying to get you know, some of the things meeting up like I think I want them to. You have to do a little bit more fitting, I think, and but gives you a general idea, shape of what we want to accomplish with all of that. So we'll get both sides kind of put together. I got to figure out some sort of a transition piece. We'll cut something up and see if we can't fit something in here, make it look like it's supposed to anyway. So that's the next step. I'll do some cutting and grinding with that, and then we'll take a look and see what kind of welding and finishing we got to do on this. And then we also have to cut out that section for the license plate pocket and do some tracing and fun stuff like that. So I'm going to see if I can make a little patch in this corner, and see if we can't button up that side. So we'll go from there. By the way, you know, I'm not really sure what this world is coming to anymore. The other day I heard about a kidnapping at school. I mean, after he woke up, he was fine, but really. Okay, well, let's go ahead and let's get some work done. All right, so got these little corner pieces in here, and everything tacked up in the corners. Did a little bit of sanding to see where my tool marks and so on were at. So got some work to do there, but basically I think the corners are ready for welding, and I'm going to weld everything from the back side. So because I mean I've got to make some curves and so on in here, and I want to make sure that it's good and solid. So next step is really pulling this off. And I went ahead and marked out on the back side where I got a cut for that license plate pocket. So let's go ahead and pull that off, and then see if we can't get the license plate pocket tacked in there and be able to go from there. Alright, so got the bumper off and marked out where I got a cutout for this license plate pocket, so spend some quality time with the sparkly wheel of terror and get a hole opened up in here, see what we can do as far as tacking that together once we get it back all in the car. So we'll make some sparks. Alright, so that should give us a big gaping hole to fill. So let's put this stuff back in the car and make some adjustments and some tacks. Go from there. Alright, so got the bumper back on and I mounted up the license plate frame with the original bracket that's been modified. So just want to kind of tack this in place, keep these ends even. And that way we can take this all back off of the car one more time, about 10 more times after that, but take it off and then start doing all the welding and grinding and sanding and yeah, all that fun stuff. So let me just get this as a tacked on here real quick. Okay, well that should hold it in place. And then you can pull this monstrosity off of here. Maybe. It seems to be in that way here. Okay. Well, I didn't plan that out very well. Got to do a little bit of trimifying on that. This tab right here, it's kind of part of the license plate pocket. It's just a little bit too high, so I'll trim that down a little bit so that this bar can slide through there. But now it's time to weld up all this fun stuff, and I'm going to weld it, like I said, I'm going to weld it all from the back so that we got the ability to do some grinding and finishing. But I think for the most part we have a bumper that is the right shape at this point. So anyways, let's get to melting some metal together. Okay, so got all this welded up from the back side, and also filled in a few gaps on the front side. So kind of got those seams ready to try and finish. So the goal is to turn this and metal finish it into this. So now this hopefully will be good enough that we can finish that out for chroming and so on, but there's a lot to that. I went ahead and basically the process that I did here was ground it, filled it, ground it again. Got to be careful with the grinder, you just don't want to take too much off, and then sanded that with a DA and 80 grit to kind of smooth everything out and make sure that everything was flat. And then hit it with a red Scotch-Brite disc and then a blue Scotch-Brite disc, and then hand sanded it with 150 and then hand sanded it with 400. So there's a bunch of stuff that's got to go into getting a metal finish like that, but the biggest thing is just being real careful with the grinder, not going too deep, because adding material back is just kind of asking for trouble when you try and finish that. So basically from here I'm going to try and get the ends to kind of look the same. So we'll show you kind of what the process is on that and tackle them from there. So let's go ahead and give that one a shot. Okay, so that's the grinding and the filling. I think it's close enough for getting started on the never-ending job of sanding. So I'm gonna go to the DA and try and flatten a bunch of this stuff out and see what it looks like from there. Okay, so the DA work is pretty much done. I'm going to attack this with a red Scotch-Brite and try and see if I can get the rest of the grinder marks out and so on, but we'll see how that one turns out. So we'll take it up.
Alright, so I hit that with both the red and the blue Scotch-Brite, which revealed a few pinholes and some tool marks and stuff that kind of sent me back on unwind. So I had to go do some welding and some more grinding, some more sanding and so on. But I think I got it to the point at this right now where start kind of the hand sanding and finish. And I'm going to start with 150 grit and just try and get all of those rest of the marks out of there. It just takes some time and effort to try and blend everything in. And just all that you're doing at this point is just trying to get rid of any scratches or anything that's been caused in the process, but kind of give you an idea what this will look like. There's a few pinholes along this edge and so on that I really don't want to go after with a grinder anymore. And I think from the perspective of the platers, they should be able to fill a little bit of those in, get some of the bigger ones out of there, but they can with the plating process and the sanding process that they go through, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but it has to be smooth, so you can have a couple of little spots in there and should be okay from a finishing perspective. So I'm just gonna kind of get all the rest of that stuff out of there, and then I'll switch to a 400 grit after that and try and get it smooth, and we will kind of pick it up from there. So see what it looks like. Alright, so here's a look at kind of the metal finish product. So like I said, got a couple of little tiny pinholes in there. I think that will fill okay from the plater, but from a shape perspective, I think we've got it pretty much how I envisioned it, I guess, and smoothed out. So I think that will do. Now just have to rinse and repeat on the other side and try and get everything to match. So contours look good, and I'm gonna work on the other couple of spots, and then we'll check back in when we're ready to go back on the car. Alright, so I got the metal finishing done on both ends and slid that back onto the car just to kind of see how everything is going to line up, and I think I got pretty much what I'm looking for, a decent gap across here and around the sides. Just a little bit proud of the sheet metal so that we can do some body work and finish that stuff off. Full disclosure is it's going through and doing the welding and grinding and sanding and polishing and so on. The heat from that had taken both of these end panels and kind of shrunk them in, so had to do some prying and bending and putting those back in place. But I think I got them pretty much where I think they're finishable. There's a few little nicks and tool marks and scratches and things like that, but nothing that a decent chrome shop can't get out. So kind of like the way that looks and finishes off to the side and ends, and so I think we're in pretty good shape.
Next step is to actually weld that to the frame that we've got that set on, that we built in the previous episode and so on, and see if we can't get a complete bumper out of it. So we will start that next. Okay, so I got that on a couple spots, and I think at this point, the only way to get that off there is to pull the bolts out and take it out as a whole assembly. So we'll take that out and put it up you can get it someplace clamped up and try and get this solidly welded to the frame, and that way I think from there we'll at least have a solid bumper mounted to the car. Looks like it's in pretty good position, and then we'll work on getting all the finishing details done. So closing in on it. All right, so I got it off the car and got this braced up just to make sure that top surface is flat, and put in a couple of spacers where I needed to, but I'm going to go ahead and get this welded onto the frame, and that way we'll have a solid bumper. Got the brackets off and so on. Had to grind a little relief in there in order to get at some of those bolts, but we'll get to welding this together. So we'll see what it looks like on the other side.
right, so that should get us all welded together. Should be solid to the mounts and so on. So I think we'll flop this over, and obviously going to have some heat marks and so on the other side to now polish back out. So we'll see what it looks like on the other side. Got a little bit of grinding to do along this edge and finishing again. Okay, I think those should come out pretty well with just a Scotch-Brite disc. So we will do that real quick. I'm gonna have to go to the DA. A little bit of bumps and so on where those things welded through, so get it sanded down with the DA and then hit it with a Scotch-Brite. Okay, after a good DA-ing to get that nice and flat again, and just to run over it with a blue Scotch-Brite, cleaned up pretty good. I think everything seems flat once more and able to be polished and so on. So I'll clean up the rest of these around the edges and so on, and then I think next step we'll figure out kind of where reverse lights go. So we're getting there. Okay, so we got the finish pretty good. Now on to trying to locate these reverse lights, since I want to take them out of the tailgate and so on. So what I did is I went ahead and modified these housings that I got for, I think they're for 68 or something like that. They're too big, but for the size that I want, kind of got the size marked out on what I want it to look like. But what I think I can do is to mount those, cut that hole, mount those in the back, and then they'll be flush in there, and that will allow me to actually have the hole dictate the size, I guess. So that's the plan, and I'm going to go ahead and try and cut these out straight. That's always an interesting challenge, but cut those out. I'm going to drill the corners out with like a 1/4 inch, so I got a radius around the corners, and then try and cut the rest of it out with a sparkly wheel of terror, so, or at least a little one. So let's give that a try. I'm going to try and drill some pilot holes here first. Make sure we get them all in the right spot, I guess. I'm out for a drill sharpening. Okay, I'm going to finish cleaning up these holes, and then we'll put some, weld some studs to the back of this so that we can get it mounted and so on. So we'll pick it up from there. Okay, so I got these in here. Got the holes pretty much the same size, but just clamped them in for the time being. And what I'm going to do is just roll this thing over. Easier said than done. But what I put in there was just some 1/4-20s, and I'm going to tack those real quick to the bumper itself, and then those will be the studs that we can bolt those to, and they'll be removable and serviceable. So that's the plan. We'll get started on that. Okay, there we go. Reverse lights installed. So I think this is pretty much ready to get back on the car and see if we can actually fit it to what it is that we're trying to accomplish. So sounds good. That's the next step. All right, well, okay, well, time to see if we can get this beast back on the car and kind of get a final fitment in there. Probably notice I did take a minute and fill in the reverse lights from the tailgate and so on, so did a pretty lousy job of patching those, but it's good enough for who it's for. So anyways, we'll see if we can get this semi-located, kind of back to where we thought it should be, and see if we can't get what I'm going to call a decent fitment, so we know that when it comes apart, chroming and after painting and all that fun stuff, that we've got a shot at actually getting it back on the car. So let's see what we can come up with here. Let's get it attached so it doesn't fall in my face. Okay, get a couple rusty bolts in place to get it started. Let's see if we can get some gaps here.
Okay, I think we are on the beast, and we'll take a look and see what kind of adjustments we need to make. Looks like this side's got to go in a little bit, and then we'll get this adjusted, and then take a final look once we get everything on there and see what the end result was. So stay tuned. Okay, so here is final product. I think actually turned out pretty good. Looks like the gaps are in pretty good shape and matches lines and so on. Really kind of like the way that that cleaned up. So really just customized, I guess, but kind of what the vision we had in mind when we started this was kind of making it unique. So hey, listen, if you get a chance, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and we'd really appreciate it. So hope you like it. Leave me a comment and let me know what you think. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Let's Get Dirty Garage. Hey, listen, I know it's been a hot minute since I've been able to get something out, so I do apologize for that. Springtime around the ranch here takes a lot of effort and time to kind of get things in shape, but no excuse. So my apologies again. But I think the amount of work that was in that rear bumper was highly underestimated by me, but I think it looks pretty good, and we should be at least on the right target. So we'll see if it's good enough to get it finished out and looking good. We'll see what the Chrome Shop says, but I think it's exactly what we were looking for. So hey, listen, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Appreciate it. Read all the comments, and hey, thanks so much for watching. It is just fantastic, the support I get from you guys, and just tell your friends, tell your family, and hey, thanks for getting dirty with me today. We'll see you next time. Take care.